to Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass, a series of digital-first conversations that we do here as part of the Leaders of Tomorrow initiative to empower you, the entrepreneur. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. On the show tonight, we're bringing you a conversation that we did on our digital masterclass talking about the hospitality, travel, and tourism space and some of the big trends and some of the big events which are really impacting the way things are happening in the space, including, of course, the ripple effect here in India out of the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Also, the pandemic bringing about several trends like higher digitization, like an increased focus on the environment and increased customization. All of that being decoded on this masterclass. Our guests included Vishal Kamath, CEO of Kamath Hotels, Isha Goel, CEO of SDIC Travel Group, Alan Machado, CEO, Niramya Wellness Retreats. Isha, gentlemen, such a pleasure having you today. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. There's so much happening and things are changing as we speak. But with that said, I think we should really set the ball rolling by asking the three of you first and foremost. No one needs any introduction to your businesses, but I thought it'll be perhaps good if you can take just 20, 30 seconds, very briefly, talk to us about what's happening, what's the latest happening at your business, and then we can, dedicate the rest of this hour to talking about the industry and what's happening in the industry. Isha, I want to come to you first.
Thanks, Sunanda. Very excited to be here today. Thank you for including me. So at Stick, what we do, so my company, we're a 50-year-old brand. Our business is primarily focused on outbound. So it's been an interesting couple of years through the pandemic and now the war, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of that. But currently, we are both hopeful and excited with international flights opening up, and hopefully we'll see some of the pent-up demand and excitement translate into results in business soon. And I'm happy to talk about some of the challenges we've had and what we look forward to going forward and how we've come out of this pandemic and what we see for our future. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for that, Isha. Alan?
Good evening, Sunanda, and good evening to Isha and Vishal as well. I'm extremely happy to be here and thank you for including me on this forum. Just to give you a quick snapshot of what Niramya does. Niramya is one of the foremost wellness brands in the country and in the world. We have properties all over the country and we have residents in private verticals across India as well. And Niramya is basically a unique convergence of wellness, hospitality, serenity, and seclusion. So that's what our brand is all about.
Vishal, I'm sure that everyone who's logged in today at some point has had some sort of interaction with Kamath Hotels, but very briefly, anything that's really exciting that's been happening over the past probably month and a half, or the past year that you want to just fill us in on before we start?
Namaskar. I represent Kamath Hotels, as Sunita just mentioned, and I'm delighted to be here because I find Isha and Alan extremely refreshing and very, very vibrant. And since this is about the future of hospitality, I think it's in great hands. That said, Kamath has been Asia's pioneering environmentally sensitive hotel chain, and we have the brand Orchid in Fort Jadavgarh. And what we've seen has been a very interesting last 1.5 years, or you could say over 2 years, and especially this last 3 months actually has been a good indicator of what can be expected to come. But I think we need to take each month as it comes and take every week as it comes, because still I think there's a lot of dynamic happenings in the market. So keeping that in mind, I think, but the prospects definitely look good for all of us, and especially for travel and tourism, especially with the international opening up. So I leave it at that. Thank you.
Interesting, vibrant, exciting, a lot of very positive terms, Vishal, you've used. And hopefully that is also what we're going to see in the travel and hospitality and the tourism space going forward. But let's break down some of those and talk about some of the cues that we see. And here on the Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass, we're talking about the big trends, the big events to watch out for across different industries. And I want to talk about the big events that we're seeing, which have had an impact as far as the hospitality and the travel and tourism space is concerned. First and foremost, let's talk about the continuing ripple effects of the war that we're seeing between Russia and Ukraine. Definitely, there is an impact as to what's happening here in the domestic economy. We've heard from the finance minister lately, more so for exports and exporters and people who are involved in the export markets. But let's also talk about the impact that we're seeing for this industry and this space, because so much of what we do here is driven by people coming into the country. First and foremost, because of what's happening there and the continued uncertainty more than anything else, what is the impact we're expecting to see here on the domestic industry? Vishal, to you maybe first.
One of the things I just mentioned, like the international opening up, that was expected to help a lot in terms of inbound coming in, because as things get colder in Europe, many people like to come towards Goa, Kerala, and various other leisure destinations. But looking at the war situation, I feel that might be a challenge from Eastern Europe. But rest of the world will come, and there is a lot of movement, especially from the NRI segment, if you look at it, because a lot of people could not visit all this time, either due to stringent norms or due to age factor or just generally due to whatever fears or thoughts they had in their mind. But now people are coming. People are coming very easily. And also, I think outbound will also pick up a lot, because people have explored India a lot. And that thrill of going to a foreign destination, which is also there in many people's to-do lists, I think that is again something. And a lot of foreign countries are participating in various forums in India to offer various incentives, like visa on arrival, or easy travel or cheaper travel. Some people who have state airlines are supporting through schemes. So I think there'll be a good amount of inbound and outbound movement. Domestic will see a little hit in that, but then again, like I said, it's a thing to be seen. So volumes may remain, but margins may not, or maybe what we call as ADRs, average daily rates, may get affected. So as I said, that we need to see it as it comes case to case.
Okay, one thing that's definitely had an impact, and Isha, I would love for you to comment on this, is what's happening as far as flights are concerned. I understand that the airspace over Russia, that's a popular route for most airlines to take because of the cost, etc. involved. If that's going to get disrupted, what is the impact that we're likely to see as far as the aviation space is concerned, flights, and then of course the effect of that on pricing?
Yes, it's an interesting point, Sunanda, and something that I think everyone across the world, all aviation specialists across the world are tracking very closely and are nervous about. Just when we thought we were done with the pandemic and everyone was tired of using the phrase cautiously optimistic, we now have this war and the challenges or the potential challenges it brings on pricing. And not just, of course, the route itself is a challenge. The fly zone issue is a challenge. The fuel costs is another challenge. So everyone is nervous about what will happen. The impact will be on pricing. It will also be on non-stops and long-haul travel in general. And you may have seen that some airlines have either reduced their flights or changed flights already from India westbound. And that's again because they are avoiding the Ukraine airspace, but with sanctions continuing to increase by the day, we do expect to see some disruption happening on long haul travel as well. So to Vishal's point, while with the flights opening up, there is an expectation that there will be people acting on pent up demand and wanting to take overseas holidays. There's also questions on the ripple effects that you were talking about and how that will impact people's budgets, how that will impact luxury travel, and how that will impact long haul travel from India westbound.
It's time for a quick commercial break. On that note, we're back in just a moment. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass. As a trend, perhaps I could come to you on this, Alan. Are we seeing certain pockets that are picking up as a response? One, not so much, of course, the Russia-Ukraine sort of outcome, or the conflict rather, but more in terms of what's happened with the pandemic that we've all been discussing. Our perhaps business travel has started picking up, more and more people coming back into offices, or this hybrid working model, which means that people are being encouraged to work from anywhere. Any sort of trends at this point that you would like to call out for our entrepreneurs to say, hey, keep your eye on this, this is going to pick up?
Of course, Sunanda, in my opinion, and I call this the devil's decade. You see, with the pandemic, the resurgence of the virus in China, with the IMF today mentioning that they're warning of a recession. All these aspects, and of course the war that is currently ongoing in between Russia and Ukraine. While all of this is happening, there is definitely a resurgence in domestic travel for sure. This hasn't really affected the domestic circuit too much in the last 2 years, and whenever there were lockdowns that reopened, we saw a surge and resurgence in business. In my opinion, the trends that we will see and the trends that we will see in the future as well is very, very clear. There is going to be a long haul reboot for sure. Although many industry experts believe it will take another 2 years for global aviation to return to pre-pandemic levels, long haul flights are experiencing a revival. And the traveler is keen on ticking off items on their bucket list, which were on hold for the last 2 years. Another very, very, very interesting trend that has developed in the past few months is personal development travel. The last 2 years have been uniquely gloomy as we emerge, from the pandemic. Many people are reinvesting in self-improvement, and this indicates that millions of people all over the world have been seeking new career paths, and in many cases, launching their businesses and becoming more entrepreneurial. With this in mind, it definitely, in that sense, is seeing a resurgence in personal development travel. We are also seeing a very interesting trend of extreme expeditions. Taking on physical challenges is on top of many people's agenda because of them being confined in their homes for the last couple of years. Travel companies are responding by launching a wide array of extreme expedition overseas.
Sure.
Also, another very interesting aspect is wellness travel. We have seen a serious resurgence in wellness travel over the last couple of months, especially that all the lockdowns and the restrictions have been eased out. We see a lot of the millennials, a lot of those gentry of travel, coming back into hotels, especially into spaces that offer you some aspect of wellness during the stay.
Sure. My question, Nisha, is this largely though an urban phenomenon? Do you see this being broad-based enough to call this out as a trend for our entrepreneurs? Are people in tier 3, tier 4 are also saying we should start taking more holidays?
Absolutely. I think it is definitely something that transcends geographies, transcends stratas, because it's not just about bucket list travel, but it's about bucket list itself. I think coming out of the pandemic, everyone has gone through their own challenges, their own tragedies, their own issues. And everyone now feels at some level that I want to do that one thing that I told myself I will do someday.
Our first question is coming to us from Netra. She says she's a PR consultant. Alan, this is similar to the question that I'd asked you, so perhaps you want to take this first, but Vishal, sure. Isha, please feel free to jump in as well. Netra says, what's the future of work and the future of living? Because of how things are turning out, will the future of business travel and events also change going forward?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would like to say this, that it is going to return to normal, but that is not going to happen in the next few years. I mean, work and travel, business travel has been completely disrupted, right? People have found solace in the fact that they can work from home. They have also found out that it is, working from home has its benefits. Obviously it has its pros and cons, but people have realized that, they don't necessarily need to travel for business, and it can be conducted through other mediums like, Zoom and online interactions. Yes, there is a physical aspect, and there is a physical aspect of, connecting with a person face to face, but that is not going to return anytime soon. And while people will digress a lot towards leisure travel, they will take holidays for sure, because that is now part and parcel of life, and that's how they view it. But business travel is not going to take precedence over the current situation, in my opinion.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I have a little contrarian view to that,
Sure.
based on considering that we have a lot of city hotels also, and we have a lot of leisure destinations also. The thing which I have seen is, firstly, let's understand that when we talk about Alan's experience is absolutely valid based on the clientele and the level of audience that he's catering to, which is a much more upscale and wellness oriented. But in general, when we talk about the audience of India, let's understand that India is basically into three categories. Okay, and the biggest category is basically the young workforce that India has. So we find that there's a massive 21 to 40 age group bracket, or I'd say 35, not even 40, who basically have come from very humble backgrounds. They've worked very hard, got a great education, got into a corporate life. And unfortunately, pandemic has hit them in their upward swing. And a lot of them don't really want to work from home, because it's not a job only that they want. They also want a life. And corporate culture allows them that life. When we talk about travel, in fact, it's the CEO who can afford to work from home because his thumbprint is not required and his work is very flexible. But when you talk about the mid-level executive who has to really process the stuff, frankly speaking, it's like Isha, myself, Alan, we can probably do work from home. But my mid-level accounting team has to come here to process various things because it's difficult, and not every job is IT oriented. So
Yep.
when we look at it holistically, it will come back, not necessarily in full force, but we already see signs of it returning, because one is that culturally we are very different from the West. In the West, you can afford to have a Friday, Saturday lifestyle where people get married only on weekends, people do everything on weekends, even if their birthday is midweek, they'll celebrate on the weekend. But in India, that is not the case. If your Tithi has come on a Thursday or a Tuesday, you might keep an upwas, but you have to be present over there for the wedding. So culturally, I think it's a big change. And what is definitely going to change is the fact that schools are starting. See, till now we've been very liberal at our homes because, you don't have to bother about the kids. Right now, the minute schools have physically started, a lot of cycles are going to change. And at that time, again, working from home doesn't necessarily have that attraction because you can't work from anywhere. So you might as well go to office and, meet people, do things. I mean, that's why we find so much of traffic back in a place like Mumbai. I don't know about Bangalore, but at least Mumbai, I find this kind of, issues that are there. So that's positive for us.
I would tend to agree with Vishal a bit, and with you as well, Alan. But I think if we were to look at trends globally as well, India schools have been closed for such a long time. There have been various other parts of the world where schools have opened, and to your point, Vishal, that has changed cycles and that has brought things back to a certain extent that have not yet come back in India, or are only starting to now. And I think as far as when it comes to business travel, as far as relationship-based travel is concerned, going to meet clients, going to meet partners, that kind of business travel, I think will definitely make a comeback.
Yeah.
So I think it will change, but it will make its own way back for sure.
Sure. This next question is coming to us from someone called Shaurya Shah. He says he's founder at Kazumi Window Coverings. Similar to what you were just saying, Vishal, about the different segments of consumers we're looking at. Shaurya's question is, will consumer segmentation become more important going forward? Because the crisis has heightened the difference amongst the different types, and I would assume, different categories of people, their wants, their needs, their budgets, etc. What would you have to say to Shaurya? Vishal, to you first.
I didn't fully understand the question, but if I am to say that based on where someone is within an organization, how will the pandemic in the future affect
So
it?
just for if you can broad base it and just talk about how perhaps organizations like yours will now have to give that sort of hyper segmentation when it comes to the offerings you're giving to different consumers, because everyone's needs then, I'm assuming, is just going to change so much in the backdrop of everything that's happening.
So if I have to make it in a very general sense, I
Yeah.
think this is a very this is nothing to do with pandemic. If you want to succeed in your business, regardless of whether there's pandemic or not, you've got to be able to segment and appeal to some segment. You cannot be a generalist. I mean, there is no general solution which becomes popular. What becomes popular is something, or rather, which becomes a brand. What becomes a brand is something which sticks in your mind that, oh, when I say this word, it means it solves my X problem. Okay, so this is a part of any business cycle, where how you segment yourself and how you appeal to a segment.
And if I may just add to that, Sunanda, I feel technology and social media are the drivers here more than the pandemic or any other factors. And that's, I think, influenced micro segmentation to a large degree. And that's what allows us to also target a lot more to individuals than larger segments.
Absolutely. Shaurya, I trust that answers your question. That was part one for you as far as all the big trends and events that are impacting the travel and the hospitality space. What do we have lined up on part two? Here's a sneak peek as we're ending tonight's show.
Real people talk about their experiences in your properties is what is the biggest shift in hospitality and tourism.
The social media and the digital strategy for any company today is paramount. You need to have it on the top of your list of things to do to engage with the customer and to drive them back into your businesses.
The biggest challenge is that just because prices of petrol and other things increase, it doesn't mean that we as hoteliers can increase our menu prices or room prices so easily.